My name's Coach Josh, and this lecture or presentation is on how to eat more, lose weight, build muscle, and improve longevity as easily as possible. And I'm going to make this lecture pretty fast, not because I don't like talking, I love talking, but because I don't like sitting and listening to things. So this is going to be a short presentation. I'm going to shoot for 22 minutes to cover the current industry standard in the nutrition space on how to transform people's bodies. And we're going to talk about all the failure points and frustrations that come with addressing this new industry standard. And hopefully you have all of your nutrition problems solved in as short a period of time as possible. What you're going to walk away with is why coaches and influencers on Instagram and TikTok are really building up this new movement of eating more to help people change their bodies and their physiology. So that's a lot of the messaging right now that I've seen on the internet is you got to eat more to break through a plateau, to build muscle, but ultimately to lose weight, which is counterintuitive and also can be difficult depending on how you're doing it. So I'm going to cover the 5 failure points of trying to control your diet and eat this way. I'm also going to cover the strategy that I use to help my students have a more seamless entry into a place of satisfaction and control with their transformation while they're working on these principles. What you're not going to get in this presentation is a lot of my personal backstory, which is amazing, but I'm going to leave it out because it's long and sordid and hilarious. But we're going to go right into the meat and potatoes. Get it? It's a food thing. Okay. I'm not pitching on this presentation. Of course, if you want to, you can go to blacksheep.com or my website to apply for coaching. If these ideas that I share with you, you're excited and you want to go deeper, or if you think you need a little bit of support with that, you can totally reach out. But there'll be no pitching in this presentation. The 3 most important things to remember about this presentation is it isn't academic. So the method of coaching and behavioral change that works for the most people. And there's a quote that I really love that the author escapes me, who says, "You show me a system that works in a variety of circumstances, and I'll show you a system that was developed by trial and error." So this is 22 years of making mistakes and also being successful in helping people get to their goals has led to this science-based but kind of behavioral change theory informed process of nutrition coaching. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to land on the sweet spot of the balance beam. So if you look online right now, everybody's talking about you have to eat more. You can't starve yourself in order to change your metabolism, to get to what I like to refer to as the metabolic threshold, but also known as the sweet spot, which is like this Goldilocks way of eating or amount of nutrients of eating that allows you to build muscle, not be too hungry, not be too tired and feel shitty, but actually enjoy your life. So that little window of perfection is called the metabolic threshold for the purposes of this presentation. If you have done your research, or if you have just gone down a K-hole of like clicking on links on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, then you'll know that in order to be in this anabolic state where you're able to build muscle and burn fat, you have to have the right amount of protein, the right amount of calories, not too much, not too little. You don't want to create stress in your body through your nutrition plan, but you want to support your body to go through these changes to create the outcomes that you want. And the things that affect your specific anabolic window are going to be parasympathetic nervous system, which is like how chill and relaxed you are, how much fun you're having, how much balance you have in your life, a nice synergy between your work and rest. It's also going to be what you're eating and how much, of course, your social relationships, whether or not you feel like you're part of a tribe, and regular moderately intense exercise. Again, to narrow down the focus of this presentation a little bit further, we're going to be talking about nutrient density, what we're eating and how much, and how to figure that out with the fewest possible problems. Because I could talk here for another 7 hours on all those other things, but I want you to feel really in control and like you can take some action when you're done with this presentation. When you're trying to feed yourself and feed your body, if you've ever done what most people do and pull up a calorie calculator and follow these influencers' advice, including me, I've said this too, you got to eat more and move more. You come up to 5 problems pretty darn fast. And those problems are calorie estimators suck, calorie counting sucks, the perfect diet is actually really hard to maintain. So if you are able to get all your calculations correct and structure out a perfect meal plan, that works great for about 2 or 3 days. And then your real life happens, your job happens, your kids happen, your stress happens, and then you have to flex. Failure point 4, that's boring even if you are able to do that. And failure point 5, that sweet spot, that anabolic window or that metabolic threshold will change, as you build muscle, as your workload increases, as your stress increases or decreases. So you have to be very much in touch with yourself and how to adapt to those changes. So let's knock them out as fast as possible. Calorie estimators suck. Earlier, you saw one of the transformation photos was me, right? Saw Fat Thor Josh and Fit Thor Josh. I've had a taste of both. And you know this if you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, that it's actually quite difficult to eat a large amount of food. So when I did my calorie calculations, right, and right here, I picked out an example of a 200-pound person that's moderately active. All of a sudden, I have a goal of eating 2,800 calories and almost 200 grams of protein, which is awesome if you just love barbecue, right? And you just want to like grill up a rack of ribs or a bunch of steaks, which I do, but even I get fatigued from eating that way. So if you take out your calorie estimator and you try to pinpoint right at that activity level versus goals, what you find is something that works on an academic table and is actually kind of difficult to execute in real life. And we have to start to make compromises or figure out how to bridge the gap between those two things. The metaphor I use for this is like, it kind of feels like when you're trying to do what your coach wants you to do or what the program is, what your doctor has prescribed. It's kind of like surfing when it's like low tide and there are no waves. Like you're swimming out, you're working really hard, you're in the right place, but it maybe at the wrong time or at the wrong angle. And if you don't do everything perfectly, you're not really surfing. You're just getting your ass kicked for hours, right? If you've ever tried to learn how to surf. And some people like to take to it really easily. I'm not that person. Instead, what we want to do is we want to windsurf. And I haven't gone windsurfing, but that looks much more fun because this person doesn't look like they're swimming up a waterfall, which is what it feels like when I'm learning how to surf. What that means to me and my students, and this is how I coach and talk to myself, is whatever feels right, start with that and then layer on small changes over time. So I'm a person who's very busy. I have low food drive, which sucks because I actually have to eat a lot for my goals and my activity level because, again, I'm busy and I'm always doing something physical. So if I have low food drive and I have to eat a lot, instead of force feeding myself the 10 ounces of steak for 3 meals a day, what I do is I start with my favorite meal that I can actually eat what I want to eat, which I actually do love steak. So what do you know? I'm going to have a dinner planned of steak. The next night, chicken thighs. For the other 2 meals, I can eat whatever I want. And I do that for a week. And then the following week, I add in a protein goal for one of those meals. That's also something I like to eat, but it still doesn't even come close to the calorie goal that I had set or the protein or the macro goal that I had set. And I layer in these tiny little baby steps, just like What About Bob? You baby step to disarm the bomb. You baby step to work to your meal plan. But in this way, every change that I make actually increases my metabolic drive. And maybe I'm still not hungry, but I do have more ability to process food. It would be the opposite if I had high food drive. I could just, okay, if I love eating and I just can have 3 or 4 800 calorie meals per day, sweet, good for you. Then I move on to the next problem of our presentation. But I like the idea of windsurfing is like whatever direction the wind's blowing, that's the way you want to go. And then you can tack and slowly guide yourself to get to your destination. And then you have an enjoyable process versus a process that just feels like a wet and watery beating. The funny part is when you start to make these adjustments, you actually feel better than you do if you force yourself onto a nutrition plan that you're not ready for. And this is something that I've experienced many times. Has anybody else ever experienced this where like the program says one thing, but that feels like trash to actually do the program? For sure. And you don't need to be 100% compliant to start feeling better. In fact, if you start to get 40 or 50 or 60% on board, your appetite will improve. My appetite has improved. My sleep would improve, and it makes it easier to take the next step. And the friction reduces for the next small step that allows you to be more successful. This also prevents simultaneously you get from falling into failure point number 2, which is calorie counting. Calorie counting, or the act of like eating something and then inputting it into a macro tracker like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal. If you've ever tried this, you get discouraged because you enter in what you've eaten and then you see the gap of what you have left to eat in that day. And it's like, oh my God, where am I going to find a food with 10 grams of carbs and 90 grams of protein? Oh, geez. So you've got that mental gymnastics that you're trying to work on yourself. And then even worse, you screen grab it and you send that to your coach and you ask for help. And then your coach reaches through the phone and wants to punch you in the face. Not that that's ever happened to me. But instead, you pick out that one little habit and you ignore the calories. You actually ignore the nutrition advice until you've solidified that next layer of your strategy. So it's like you're building the pyramid wide before you build it tall, and you make it really easy for yourself to get to the next level. You're not burning up extra energy or wasting time doing things that ultimately don't get you to your goal, that's what I believe in calorie. Like an audit is okay to count calories. I'm not saying don't ever look and like actually see what's happening. But once you have the data, move on to the next phase of actually planning, prepping, and winning. You get to your actual calorie estimator goal, your macros. You finally get to your macros. And let's say you make some progress. You lose a few pounds, you get stronger, you have more energy, amazing. But then you hit a plateau. Well, that's okay. Actually, the plateau is an educational point. In the old way of doing business, you have a table, right? And you base your nutrition strategy on like what is actually, or what your activity levels are and what your goals are and how much you weigh. But if you look at your life, your health in a more three-dimensional aspect, when you get to a plateau, you can go off plan, right? And you can start a reverse diet, right? Or a proper diet and play with putting pressure on your nutrition plan, higher or lower, and seeing how it feels. Because what will happen is your actual body needs something that a textbook or a calculator can't tell you, and you only know when you test. So when you find a plateau, it's your opportunity to test and see what those guardrails are for you and your nutrition. And for me, back to the windsurfing analogy, I always check in with my body. If I'm hungry, eat more, even if my plan says don't eat as much, and then see what my measurements do and see how my energy and my sleep are. Or if I'm not as hungry, play with eating less and then see how my body responds to that. That cycle of feedback loops called auto-regulation, and that should be another presentation. We could do a whole thing on that. So if you never get involved with, if you use those calorie estimators and the tables as a signpost and as a starting point, but not as an ending point, you'll actually have a much better experience navigating through the process of trying to change your body. Also, trying to change your brain, trying to change your focus and energy. Your health program is a lot more alive in that way. What I've just shared with you is what I call the metabolic threshold method. That's that little tiny like balance beam's perfect spot to land in that chart. Back there, the sweet spot where you're in your anabolic window, where you're able to build muscle and burn fat. There's actually 10 meta skills that are involved in this, like being able to use a macro tracker, being able to plan a meal, being able to eat consistently, or being able to be hungry. These are all skills that are involved in having a successful nutrition plan. And these are all skills that I teach in my program here at Black Sheep. Also, I teach it online. Like I said, there's no pitching at the end of this, but if you look on my website or YouTube channel, there's links to these programs where you can get more support to develop these skills.
How does that change and differ from your clients that also think that they eat what they want and don't get the results that they want?
So when I say eat what I want, what I mean is if I have a goal, like let's say that I'm trying to lose 10 pounds, and the nutrition requirements for that are very far from where I've been eating at or been living at or what is normal or feels good for me, then I pick the easiest possible habit or task. So let's say that I need to eat more protein. I'm just going to pull one thing out of it. Let's say that I need to eat more protein in order to get to this weight loss goal? Well, I'm not going to up my protein by 50%. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to have a protein dense lunch and I'm going to add that habit in. Everything outside of that new focus is whatever I want, except for this new change. And even then, the foods I pick for lunch are things I want to eat. So I hopefully won't have to pick things that are unpalatable to me. But then when I move on to the next skill, it's I eat the disciplined lunch and then now the new disciplined dinner. So I'm building a structure that gets me to where I want to go. So whatever I want gets narrower and narrower to a smaller and smaller part of the time. I still say it's still whatever I want because there's no such thing as an off-limit food or an off-limit activity. So if I have somebody who really likes to drink beer, I say, great, drink all the beer you want. I think I told that to you, Brian. Drink all the beer you want, but you're going to get 180 grams of protein. Drink all the beer you want, but we're going to get 1,800 calories. Drink all the beer you want, but we're going to get 2,200 calories. So I'm baby stepping him towards a narrower and narrower spot of where he's able to drink fewer and fewer beers, partly because the cravings go away as his brain chemistry gets more aligned and balanced, and he really likes the results that he's getting, and the desire and the drive for those coping mechanisms will be slightly reduced. But also, as long as someone knows that they can still have chocolate or wine or whatever the thing is, that gripping for life support on that item, it actually doesn't really appear. But if you tell someone no carbs, man, they're going to be crushing beer and pizza so fast. That's what I mean by whatever you want. It's all offense, no defense, but to like a narrower set of time and meals until eventually if someone's goals are strict enough, let's say you want to be into the teens of body, you want to have 16% body fat. Well, you're going to have 20 out of 21 meals on plan. And so you still can have whatever you want sometimes, but if you really want abs, then you really don't want dessert.
Timing wise, do you wait till you've had a measurable result before adding a new shift in habit? Like what triggers the okay, you've got this down, now we add something else?
Love that question. Drive. So motivation. If someone is like, give it, I want it to do all the steps. If they're just like hungry for whatever the next level is, then I will allow someone, or I will put an expectation of having a next step be a little bit faster if they've shown mastery for 14 days, 10, 14, 21 days. If someone is feeling overwhelmed, that might be 21 days, 30 days. We may not move. We may actually go back a step and say, let's relax a little bit. You can do everything all at once. If your life is like super chill and you just love health and fitness and you have nothing else to do, great. But for most people, even if they're ambitious, so like if I was dealing with an elite level athlete like Mike, I'm going to give him one thing at a time. And once he demonstrates it and executes it, he might be able to do it in 3 days. Okay, cool. He's getting a glass of water with every meal. Next thing. Now, the more complicated the task and the harder it is to demonstrate competency with that, right? So at some point, without getting too far off in the weeds, as fast as they're being successful and feel successful, and the measurable results, and sometimes people will get continued results with just a couple of interventions, but they'll actually feel even better if they take on a few more actions. So it really just depends on the ceiling and the tolerance and the drive. So it's a great question. It's individualized.